Welcome, folks, to those who are tuning in, and for anyone watching the VOD from sometime in the future, I suppose. Fresh coffee, very good. A little bit late going live, had some logging in issues, which I will fix for next time. I was planning to be live about 15 minutes ago, but that's okay. Google was having a fuss. But yeah, it's because I stream Minecraft on Twitch on Fridays, and then 3D modeling on YouTube on Saturdays, and you have to re-log in every time, and it just doesn't like that. So I will use different software for each stream. It shouldn't make too much of a difference for what I'm doing, honestly. Anyway, about this and what we're going to be working on. We've got a Charmander. This is my practice, and it actually turned out quite well. I'm very pleased. I've tried to model Charmander once in the past, and the head is a surprisingly tricky thing to get right. It's fairly smooth in shapes. I'm still not 100% happy. It's a little bit funny in the back. If we pause the animation there, it's just the camera rotating around. It's a little bit lumpy on the top of the head, but otherwise, like, it's a little bit square along here. This area is actually really tricky to get nice and smooth. Here, there's no interior to the mouth. If we zoom in, you can see it's just orange in there. And what else? So I'm critiquing. Well, I'm critiquing myself now, so I know what to look out for in the next one. This area here resulted in sort of a funny pinching in the texture, and that's just from the unwrapping and how the texture was. And there's a seam here where the arm joins, and it ended up stretching, I think, this part of the model a bit further out, and that resulted in, even though I was drawing a fairly straight line, it ended up being a bit of a pinch point there. I forgot to do the outline on the underneath there, so we need to fix that and round that off for next time. The hands are fine. They could be better, I guess, but for the purposes of making a simple character, that's fine. The legs ended up looking okay. It's a little bit square on the base of the tail. I'm not sure what's going on here, so that should probably be addressed. Toenails probably don't need to be bright white. Probably turn them to like an off-white, like a cream sort of colour. And the tail fire is just a very simple object. I couldn't think of a way to achieve a fire-looking thing in the sort of space of time that would have for doing this. So it's just a sphere that I used randomized select on, moved vertices around, and then scaled it in a bit, and we got the shape. And I just very quickly, very hastily painted some red and some orange and then some yellow, and it makes it look, when it's moving, it looks fine. Just don't stop and it's fine. But the eye looks good. Still not 100% on the nostrils, but based on the references that I've looked at, it seems right. It's just a little bit odd. It might be because I haven't, I'm not 100% sure on the shape that's just around here. I think the mouth is supposed to be a little bit further forwards, and that might be why it looks a little odd to me. I'm not sure. Other than that, I'm really, really happy with this. Those are very minor details that I'm fussing about, and it's helpful to spend a bit of time after you've made something, get some fresh eyes, go look at something else, and then look back at what you did. Because I finished this probably about an hour ago, a bit more than that now, and I just set up a scene with the camera spinning around, just so we can have something interesting to look at to start the stream. Cool. I just need to click on a couple of things. Beautiful. Alright. So let's head over to a new file in Blender. and we can start working on Charmander 4 from scratch. Now, when I was modelling him earlier, previous today I've tried to model Charmander, didn't work out. And then again, today I was like, I'm going to get it right today. And eventually I did. But the first attempt, it was very lumpy and I wasn't quite getting where I wanted. So I sort of, with the bad model that I had, I spent some time looking at where I wanted the edge loops to go. And then once I had that, it was much quicker and easier to actually get to the result. So with the cube, we'll do a control 2. 2 is important, so make sure levels on the viewport here on the subdivision modifier is 2. And we'll apply that. And we're just setting up the basic mirrored rounded cube that I use for pretty much every model that I make. Normally I would probably do a control 1. Hi Matthew. I'm glad. And I'm also very glad that you're still here. Thanks for tuning in. So with the mirrored cube, we want to turn on clipping. And then we'll go back to solid view and object mode, and we'll add in the side view I found. Oh, thank you. I am originally from the UK, and so the accent that I've got is because now I live in Australia for a number of years now. My accent is somewhere in the middle. I'm not too sure what it is. But we're adding in a reference image on the side. And the reference image I got is similar to the ones we've used in previous videos. This is actually called a SETI or a SETEI, S-E-T-T-E-I. I'll type that into chat because that's an important spelling. So that's a Japanese word for basically a character sheet. And if you're lucky, you can pretty much type in the name of any Pokemon with that word SETEI next to it, and you'll get a very similar character sheet to this. Now, initially, my thought was to use. We've got a good profile here, and we've got a good front view here, side view and a front view. Now, initially, I thought to use both of those. Turns out, because of this mouth being open, it makes it way, way harder. Thank you, wife. I appreciate you improving the algorithm. So what I've done, instead of using the open mouth one, I'm just using the closed mouth one. And just sort of eyeballing it in perspective view to get an idea of how it should look. And that I found was a much more effective method for modelling the Charmander. So rather than using two references that are just too different, with this mouth being open, because it changes the shape of the cheeks, it changes the length of the head, it changes the size of the mouth as well. It changes a lot of proportions, and because it's also a drawn thing, it's not always going to be perfect either, so we'll just keep that in mind. So we'll go to turn on transparency, probably go a bit less than 0.5, but around 0.4, and then just in the X axis, just hitting G and X, we'll just move it out the way, because in orthographic it's always going to be the same size. So if I move it in X now, I'm moving it, you can see that it's coming in front, but it doesn't change unless you're in perspective, and then you can see the actual the size changing. So that's why I just move them out the way and don't worry about keeping them super close or anything like that. Now let's move to the actual modelling phase. Now, Charmander has a very round head here, and then there's a lot of detail that happens in here. So with the edge loops, what we want is, so obviously we want a loop around the eye, and then we want what I sort of refer to as the superhero mask. So we have an edge loop that comes across the brow, around the eye and back and across the nose. And then we'll also have an edge loop that goes just underneath that one, so from the nose all the way to the back of the head. And then we want an edge loop that goes just around the mouth. So if we can get all those 4 edge loops incorporated, then the model will work, basically. So let's get that. So in edit mode, scaling down, and I've just hid by accident. So we'll scale down, and just get it pretty close to the size of the head. Obviously it's not a perfect circle, but this vertice is just on the outside of that black line. It goes all the way curving around. This vertice is just on the outside of this black line, so you can pretty much leave those there. Now we'll start moving other things around. We'll check the front view and move this in on the X, just to keep things not too warped. We'll bring forward these polygons, I think, because that looks around where we would have the mouth. Bring these back. So we're just getting this outline using the 2 or 3 polygons that are available. Now let's try. I can't remember exactly what I did, but I can get fairly close. Yeah, I don't feel like that's where I was last time. So let's rotate this, bring it back in. So scale these 2 together and bring that back. Scale these 2 together. Just bring it to here. Scale these 2 together. So that's the where the mouth is going to go. Hey there, Ryan. How you going? I'm going to select these and edge slide them down. Now I know I want an edge loop around the mouth here. So what I'll do is delete these edges. I'm going to extrude in, just scale in a tiny bit, and then select the edges on the outside. It can be difficult to select, so I've selected one of the wrong ones there. So if I okay, so now I've just got those outside ones selected. I can scale up a little bit, scale in Z, move it out a little bit, and we've got some polygons there. And at this point, they don't need to be particularly close. So we'll bring these back past where the mouth should be. So that's the first edge loop that I was talking about in place. Now we technically have got the second one as well. So we've got an edge loop going around the mouth now, and we wanted an edge loop going from the nose across to the back of the head. So to achieve that, which is kind of already there, we can just do an edge loop in here and move these forwards. I'll probably move these vertices forwards, and we'll probably do a loop cut in here at a later point. So now we've got an edge loop here. We can go to faces and just alt select, and you can see that loop there. We've got a loop there. So now we want to make sure we get the superhero mask in. Hey, since that wrap tutorial, yeah, I'm actually planning to update that for the current version of Blender. I might do a stream, I might do a video. I'm not 100% sure what that form that's going to take, but it will take some form, because there is a lot of people still watching it, and I feel like it's not the old interface, but it is the old interface. So there's a lot of differences that can make, especially for newbies, it can be quite difficult to figure out exactly what the buttons are and all that sort of stuff. So we want the superhero mask. Now I think the way I did it last time was to select these faces and delete the faces, and then select these vertices, I think, or let's select the edges. Extrude them out. So now we've got this loop that goes all the way around. And then we just want to line up with where we think the vertices can connect. And I might start merging. I'm going to merge at the center just to get somewhere. We might end up building some other stuff in. Let's just get the easy parts done first. I've accidentally selected something there. I've not done this one. There we go. Okay, now to connect to the rest of this, we've got, so that could extrude to there. That's probably not going to look very good. I think we'll bring these two together. Merge at center. There we go. We'll bring these two together. Merge at center. Now I know I do want some more polygons for the eye anyway. So we'll add in a couple of extra loops across the eye. And then we can just build in these faces here. And so we've got a loop that when we do a loop cut, we can add in extra detail there if we need to. And if we go to faces, you can see that that's a one continuous face loop that goes around. And obviously in a mirrored view, that would continue all the way around. Obviously it's a big lumpy mess in perspective. Don't worry about that. We will smooth that out in a very short amount of time. So we want to be looking here. Okay, so we want to make sure that this face loop obviously goes around the eye and is not a part of the eye. So I'll bring this bit down, and we've got this extra geometry that we just added in, so we might as well use that to smooth out the nose. And we'll probably use, I don't think, if I was to scale this in the Y, would that, yeah, that would work. There we go. Okay, so we can do a basic shaping of the eye now, I think, and just get these vertices to get into the rough positions that we're going to want them. We'll delete, delete the vertices in the middle there, as we're not going to be using them. When we do extrude the eye, we're not doing it yet because we haven't shaped the rest of it yet, and it's just going to be harder with more geometry to shape it. But when we do, we'll extrude and scale in, and then we've got that edge loop that goes around the actual eyeball. And obviously if we'll scale that up, and then scale that one up, and we've got that edge loop that goes around the eyeball. And that allows us to create a nice looking eye, basically. It also gives us more control over how things would happen, especially in like an animation sense as well. So we want to have that in mind. I do want to add an extra edge loop here. I'll probably bring this back first, because that looked very out of place. So we've got another edge loop there. That should help smooth things out. And I kind of want to merge this in, although I'm not 100% sure. It just looks like there's an extra row of faces in there that we don't necessarily need. But we'll get things looking fairly smooth in this view, and then we'll head into 3D view and bring that out in the X a little bit. It can help to obviously have this reference just to look at, sort of over here whilst we're working. We can get an idea of the shape, maybe even like this, because it'll be behind where we're working, or just fairly flat and just move it around as we need. Yeah, to get an idea of what's going on. So we don't need a big ridge or anything around the eye. That will just look odd. But the eye does, and the eye is fairly flat along the side of the head. And it's rotated just a little bit towards the front. So currently it's rotated probably a bit more than it should be. But it's also not having that nice rounded eye shape. You're right. So we'll just move these vertices ever so slightly and just get a fairly rounded looking shape. I'll just check from other directions. Obviously that's sticking out quite far, as is this. I'll just bring these in a bit. Well, that's starting to look like the Charmander we all know and love. Bring these in on the X. And by moving everything at this stage on the X, it means that we're not affecting anything on the profile that we've already established. We might need to, for example here, I might want to bring these edges more forwards to help create a snout. And I will want to bring, the mouth is, in all shots I've seen, the mouth is as wide as, if not wider than where the eye comes out to. And currently you can see it's basically on the inside of the eye. So we want to literally just grab these edges here, I think, and hit G and X and bring it out just a bit to there. And that will give us a point to work from. And so we can smooth everything else out around that. And this is part of what makes Charmander actually more challenging than he appears, is the unusual amount of shape to his mouth. I want to bring that in just a little bit, because that's where his lips are. Yeah, it's a challenging model because of the shapes that are a bit unusual, I'll say. They're not consistent with other models that are similar to this. For example, the Velociraptor has a very thin snout with little eyes on top, which is, you can understand that. But Charmander is quite a squishy, and it's supposed to be, appealing and squishy and cuddly and that sort of thing, rather than a big scary creature. So you've got to keep that in mind. Charmander is a baby.
We love him.
And so we'll keep working on the shapes. So his snout is not, it doesn't make this shape, it makes this shape. So we want to make sure we get that. Otherwise it just looks wrong. The back of the head, honestly, even as far back as here, I'll keep pulling out where the jaw sort of is, to try and get the correct shape. We might just jump into top view, and what I did actually end up doing in my practice model, which worked, was actually bring the back of the head out just a little bit, just to get it rounded off, because there's not really enough space. And I think that's just a part of it being a 2D drawing versus how a 3D model actually works. So now we've got, say, these edges here, we can pull out a bit. These ones I think need to come in a little bit. It's very much just the this is called what they call the artistic phase. There's a fantastic YouTuber, I've not got his name in front of me, do I have it on here? Tomcat. He's putting out some tutorials on how to build a 3D character, and he talks about how whilst you're adding loops and all and moving vertices around to sort of get enough vertices in each part of the model. That's sort of the construction phase of the model. And then when you get into the nitty gritty and you're moving stuff around to get the shapes actually looking correct, that's the artistic phase. So that's what we're doing now. We've done a lot of the construction, and now we're into the artistic phase. So we're getting, I haven't added any vertices in a while, but we're getting closer and closer to the shape that we're trying to make. It can be helpful to just look at the reference itself. So his snout, I'm pointing to the screen, that's just in the center of the world, so his snout is fairly flat on the front, whereas this is quite rounded still. And then the mouth sort of comes and then it sort of goes in. And then it's quite a sharp and small bottom of the jaw. So I can just Alt-G to move that back to the center of the world. Because I didn't move that initial cube, I've just been moving everything around in edit mode. Then the object's origin was always in the center of the world. So that's a handy tip. So I'll get this snout looking a bit flatter. We'll pull these out. I might bring the bottom lip just under. He's got a slight over or under bite, I guess. His top lip comes over just a little bit more than the bottom lip. Might even pull that back, just to get that really flat looking front of the snout. Looks okay. Now this does not look as okay, so we'll bring this forwards in the Y. Might bring this forwards in the Y. Might even just move that to a bit more of a central position. Have that about there. Okay, so that's starting to look pretty good to me. I'm ready to move on to, we'll add in a bit more of the mouth. So we'll move it, I'm just extruding, and then I'll go into the top view to show what I'm doing. I'm just moving it in and back. I'm not going to add any faces on the inside. I just don't need them at this point. I'm going to add another edge loop and move it very close to those lips there. Wow, that was a noisy cat. And if when you're detailing you decide that these polygons, technically they're too big, so if you do that then you've got nice square polygons. I'm not going to worry about that for now. But what you can do is actually delete the vertices here for where the neck will be, and then you're only cutting along the top, and then the edge loop can't connect around to the bottom, so then you can decide where those vertices go. It does help to have aligned vertices, so we've got one top and bottom, one top and bottom, one top and bottom. That helps making the animations better and easier, but you don't necessarily have to follow that as a rule. Let's add in the eye now as well. So this shape here is actually pretty much right on the eye. So we'll scale up a little bit and then extrude down to where that eye back is again, and scale back down. And then we're going to extrude in on the X, move back a little bit on the Y. That there looks fine. And we actually want to connect all this up. Now I'll create a center line there, and then add a vertice just by using Control R, and now I can create a quad and a quad. Do another one, Control R. If you do Control R on an edge that has no polygons, instead of creating a loop, it just creates a new vertice. And with those vertices that we already had, that's fantastic. We can actually create quads, and we don't have to worry about adding in any extra geometry to make it work. And then we'll just quickly select these polygons, extrude out, and just bring it back to where that eye socket started. And that will give us a nice rounded eye when we subdivide. So if we go shade smooth and then Control 2, so you can see it's got a nice, we've got the shape in, and it's a little eyeball that's sitting there. So there's no eyelid, so to speak. So you'd need to model a bit extra if you need eyelids. And with the what do we call it? The subdivision surface on. Make sure obviously it's the second modifier in your stack, because when it's not, it makes a weird bit in the middle. So make sure that's second. And then we can look over and see if there's any weird lumpy bits. And just look at the way, like across here, look at the way the lighting is changing across the model in specific areas. So if I watch the top of the eye here, I'm seeing a bit of like a divot here and a divot here. So I might need to bring those out a little bit. I'm seeing sort of a sticky outy bit here. Probably not enough shape quite yet in the snout, so it needs to come out a bit on the X. It wasn't enough volume, I guess. Not shape is not the right word. And yeah, at the top of the eye where I was seeing some weird stuff going on, you can see that the polygons are all a bit uneven. And that's why things are looking a bit wonko. So you can quickly see your changes by just rotating to the other side of the head when you've got it mirrored like this. You can obviously tab to edit mode or object mode. Now, as I thought, if I do these edges here and erase the edge loop, that's gotten rid of a bunch of extra edges. That's where I was talking about not long ago, that I was thinking about merging some spots. You can actually achieve that just by doing that edge loop erasure. Now obviously subdivision surface makes everything a little bit smaller, so being that we want the model to look like the correct thing when it is subdivided, we do want to make sure that the subdivided model is the one that matches the reference. So we'll bring things out a bit. Now I'm not working with optimal draw. This is called on cage now. It used to be called optimal draw. Not optimal display, that's something different. But yeah, I still call it the odd thing, so whatever. This button here, if you click that, it makes all the lines nice and curvy and smooth and it looks really cool. That's fine for showing off your model, but this is not a mode to work in because it doesn't give you an accurate representation of where you're putting the vertice, so you're not in as much control as you think you are. Because I don't have proportional editing on, but when I move this vertice out, if you look at these vertices here, they're also moving, even though I don't have proportional edit on. So if I move that out and then go turn off subdivision and all that, that vertex is way out here. It's not here where the optimal display was showing us. So we don't use that. Bad. Just line those up a bit. I feel like I want to bring this edge loop down just slightly, just by using the edge slide. That's better. Yeah. It looks less like a stripe across the middle of the eye now. And everything's looking nice and smooth now. I'm not seeing anything too lumpy. Shape's probably still not perfect to match the reference, and it being a Charmander, but for our purposes for today, it's going to do. We've done 40 minutes on the head. Now, it is the head, so it is the most complicated part of any model, really. It's got the most detail. It's got as much detail as the rest of the body, other than your hands, but hands on Charmander are very simple. So when you're modelling, if you think you've spent too much time on the head, you've probably not spent enough. Now I have enabled an add-on. Now I'm going to use the rough shape here and the rough length of the body, but I'm not going to follow the silhouette too closely. I am going to bring the jaw forwards a bit, and I'm going to bring this forwards a bit as well. So it's a fairly flat there, and it's given us a bit of space there. Now, what we can do is with an add-on, it's actually very useful. And I've been doing it the hard way for years, but I just found out recently that this add-on not only exists, I knew it existed, but it actually helps. So if we go to add-ons and type in loop, so we've got mesh loop tools here, and that gives us some extra stuff in the right click menu. I'm sure it gives more tools elsewhere as well, but that's the bit that I've been using. So what I have liked to do is actually I'll extrude down once and just move this down in the Z a little bit. And I'm going to go loop tools and do circle. And even with the mirror, it actually works really well. So we've got a very circular looking part of the model there now. So I'll bring that back up and sort of align it with where I want it to be. And then I will actually select these parts of the model before, and I'm going to edge slide them about halfway. So if we see the length of the edge here, we want to come down to about half that length. And that will just, because we're edge sliding towards a circle, it will smooth out those and make them more circular, but not completely. So we go from the wacky shape that we've already had to something slightly more circular, and then something that is a circle. So that makes the transition a bit smoother. And then we're going to extrude the body down, and we're going to keep extruding and create the tail in one motion. Well, not one motion, but various motions. Now's a good time to save if you're following along. We're actually going for a good half an hour or so now. So let's save. I'm going to save and follow my usual half of the name for the practice and half of the name for the final. Then that's my name there, Mander.blend. Okay, so now let's extrude down, and we're just going to scale out and just, we want a very teardroppy shape, so his body seems to be fairly flat. It's not really any other good references here, but it's fairly flat at the sort of chest, and then it starts to come back. So we'll sort of try to encourage that, and we'll just do it in as few extrusions as we can to start off with. We do want to rotate as we're going here, because we want to rotate enough that we can stick a tail out the back. I think I want to scale up a bit more, because we want to get it close to this sort of shape. So extrude again, and rotate a whole bunch again. Maybe not quite that much. So we've got the flat part, and now we're sort of coming back. Feel like that should be a bigger section, and then we'll come back again, rotate and scale down, and this is where the tail will start. I might bring this forward a bit, something like that. So we're sort of roughly following. I think we have ended up in the subdivided model. We've actually ended up following that a bit more than I was intending to, but that's fine. And then we can extrude the tail out and rotate and scale, rotate and scale a bit more. I might bring that there. When I do a loop cut in something like this, I'll slide it to the previous loop and then bring it out and rotate and scale. And that just maintains the consistency of the shape rather than what Blender is figuring out to be about halfway. Okay. I actually want to turn that subdivision off whilst we're working here. Okay, now that's a very low poly version of the body. We want to bring, let's just select each loop. So the neck comes in a little bit, as we can tell from the front here. His mouth is sticking out a little bit further than normal. So we'll bring the neck in on the X just a little bit, just to give that skinny look of the neck. And then this can come out. And then this loop can come out a bit further. And create the tubby little body. Now these loops, because it's because of the way we did it, it's actually because we scaled rather than doing everything in various views at the same time, which is a bit more difficult. We can actually just select the whole thing because we've got clipping on in the mirror. We'll move in the X, we'll get it pretty close, and you know that's a circle. Now we can go to solid and double check. Maybe even bring it back out a little bit. So there's a little bit of pinching in here. That's probably caused by this. There we go, that's better. And then we can close the tip of the tail, because we don't need that to be open. Oh, come on. So we'll just close that. For some reason I'm getting difficulty zooming in that far. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I will loop cut, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't have an odd amount, so we'll loop cut. I think I'll do 3. Do this, do this, do this. Need one more. Undo and scroll up until there's 4 dots, and then that will be enough to fill in all of these as faces. I think there are quicker ways to do it with add-ons, but we're not going to worry about that. We'll just select the vertices and build it by hand. It's good practice to know exactly what you're doing. Okay, I think it's this perspective's annoying me. 3, there we go. So I want to select these vertices here in the middle, bring them up a little bit, and then bring these 2 up a little bit. It just creates a rounded looking situation. Maybe scale these in a little bit. And that smooths out nicely. That will be covered by the fire as well, so it's not too much of a worry. So now we have Snake Charmander. So you look up and what? He's got no arms or legs. He's a snake. He is probably, he does need to be a bit chubbier, I think. There it is.
I enjoy that. Oh, he's like a little hognose snake. He's beautiful. Okay, I'm going back to the stand. Bye.
Bring those cheeks out a little bit.
I needed a palette cleanser.
You're welcome. Maybe bring these. Just trying to make this look a bit less thin in the chunkiness here. It's looking a bit better now. And we've got, so we want to add in arms and legs. Now typically I'll add in a shoulder for both arms and legs, or I won't add a shoulder for the legs, depending on the character. Now this character, it's looking more like a shoulder works for the leg, but not for the arms. Because the arms are little tubes that are sticking off the body, and the legs are not. still needs to probably be wider. I think we need to add in. You right? Oh, you're just watching a show. I want to scale these up a little bit. Add in some more roundness. Just get that looking good. So he's a bit rounder now. Having those extra polygons to work with, so we can actually, rather than worrying about keeping him perfectly circular, because he's not, we'll select, say, a vertice with proportional. Maybe select these 4 and just widen the bottom area. He's more of a teardrop shape like this than he is a circular thing. His back is probably fairly flat. So if we bring that down with proportional, turn off proportional, and just bring these back out to create a curved shape. We can even just follow the reference there. That's fine. Oh, no worries, Ryan. Yeah, take it easy. The VOD, it takes about 24 hours to process. So in 24 hours after, so not tomorrow day for you, but the next day there will be the VOD will be up. So you're welcome to keep watching from there. Currently 50 minutes in, so just remember that, and then you can keep watching. We've just got the arms and legs to attach. But thanks for tuning in, mate. I really appreciate it. And obviously look after yourself. Don't worry about some dude making a Charmander.
I worry about some dude making a Charmander.
Well, it's your job to. Okay, fairly happy with that shape of body now. Bit rounder, a bit pudgier. Much closer to the reference from what I can see. Now let's add in some arms. So let's look at where we can. I'm going to look at these 6 polygons. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, no worries. I plan to keep going for the foreseeable future. I've got lots of little ideas, like the Raptor tutorial that I want to update for actual videos rather than just streams. But I'm enjoying the sort of casualness of a stream that doesn't require multiple takes. As long as I spend a bit of time practicing and making sure that I know what I'm modeling, then it always goes quite smoothly, so that's not a problem. Yeah, I'm liking these polygons because they're on this more on the side, which is where his arms are, rather than on the front. And I need to hide that reference because it's throwing me off. We can still look at it over here when we want to see the shape of the arms. And so, rather than making a shoulder, we're just going to sort of move those closer into position. Now, I didn't use edge slide just then, like a silly boy. I need to fix up how things are looking. 6 polygons is plenty for the arms that we're making. He does have quite chunky arms, that's something to keep in mind. And then we'll select these 2 polygons, extrude, go to edge mode, and we're going to delete that middle edge, select the ring of vertices, and as before we're going to loop tools and then circle. And now it's sort of rotated around a little bit in some places, so we'll just rotate back. Just by aiming the view basically down the barrel. Scale a bit. Now we can even, as before, I want these vertices to be more circular, but not a circle. So I will edge slide those about halfway. Maybe a little bit more. Then scale up, bring them back in. Make sure they sort of conform to the rest of the body. That's looking okay. And then we can Now this looks rotated a little bit, so I'll do that. I'll do that. That's better. And I will just we'll do basically a T-pose with Charmander. Not much more to do with him. He does have quite thick arms though. And that's something I have to remind myself because I keep making them too thin. I sort of feel like I want them to be thinner, but they're actually not. So they don't come out too far, they're not super duper long. Based on this, sort of, they're 1.5 eyes in length, sort of that sort of length, so it's nothing too crazy. Probably about there. And then if we close it up, we actually don't have enough polygons to make fingers. So we'll extrude and scale. And then we can sneakily, by having sort of a rounded off thing there, we select, so we could either select these three and extrude, and then we got kind of the claw, which is more like this. I don't feel like that's particularly what his hands are meant to look like. So I'll select these three, and I'll do I'll do Alt-E, and extrude individual faces, and just let them come out a little bit. Bring them out. Scale down on each of them. Not too much scaling, but a little bit. And then we can start to shape the hand a little bit as well. So that's just these 4 polygons. Bring those in. Maybe bring these in a little bit. You know, a little Charmander arm. That's pretty much it. Now his little fingers are probably stumpier. I mean, in this reference they're longer. In this reference they're really tiny. So I might just make them a little bit shorter. Something like that. No, that feels too much. Might even scale up the hand, scale up the arm. It's a bit more uniform. There we go. Yeah, little Charmander arms. We can add a bit of thickness to the fingers by bringing these vertices forwards pretty much in the Y. Scale these 2 vertices in. Scale these in as well. It's not a particularly normal edge loop setup for a hand. It will do. Yeah, there we go. Fingers are much thicker and stockier now. So they'll sort of, when you want to animate them, they'll animate like noodles. You might want to add an elbow, but they're not, from what I can remember from the anime, and I haven't actually watched him in motion, but I feel like his little arms just sort of stick out, and his hands maybe wiggle a little bit. But not, I don't think he has an elbow. So I'm not worried about that. So I would encourage him to have like arms that curl a little bit, but you don't need an elbow for that. You might want to add more geometry in like this to make that easier. That might make it harder. I'm going to leave it without. I don't need it. Excuse me. And now we just want to add in the legs. And then the toes. Now the legs, didn't really have a perfect time with them last time, I'll be honest. They were a bit fiddly. I eventually got a shape that looks good. I'm not super happy with how it happened, but it did. What I ended up doing, because the legs are inconsistent as to exactly where they come from, they're sort of, obviously the tail's between the legs, so we could probably, maybe these vertices here. If we extrude these out, so we want to make a shoulder like I discussed. So we want to extrude out the faces, and then we delete the bottom edge, and then extrude the actual limb from there. So we're going to have to do a bit of reshaping. What I did last time was I just rotated some polygons and then tried to make stuff fit. And that's essentially what we're doing again here. Yeah, it's not the best way. Because of the way we modelled the body, it's resulted in this. You could potentially model the body using the subdivided cube method, and then make a circular piece of geometry on the back and extrude that out. It's sort of a... I haven't tried that method yet, so I'm not 100% sure if it works. I didn't have the opportunity or the time to try out that many methods, but the method I did use, which is this one, ended up being alright. So again, we'll extrude down. So we've got a big weird shape, and we will loop tools turn that into a circle, and then rotate a bit to get that better scale. We actually don't want to scale too much of these, so we'll rotate. I want to get this fairly flat again. Just using the background here. Hi there, Elvis. How you going? Nice to see you. Welcome to Charmander. We're just modelling the legs now. So we've got this much done. I don't know if you can rewind, but at the start of the stream, there is a spinning version of the final. Actually, we can just look, this guy. This is what we're doing. And this is how far we've gotten. So we're getting there. We're nearly there. So we've got very circular legs. And the old trick that I like to do, where we select the poorly shapen row that we haven't circularized yet, and we will edge slide towards, and we can see that becoming a circle when we edge slide like this. Oh, very good. It must be early where you are. For me, it is now 9:40 PM. So that's where we're up to. Okay, so let's do this. And now I do want to scale in. Scale Y a bit though. Yeah. Bring these out on X. So he's got quite strong legs, and we've ended up where we've pulled this vertice way out of position. So what we might do is edge slide these down a bit, edge slide these down a bit, and just add in another edge loop here for the tummy, just to make sure that keeps its shape. It's starting to feel a bit crowded on the back, but the back is a very flat place, so there's not a lot of deformation happening here. There might be a little bit of curving, but other than that, as long as we keep things flat, it should be fine. If we go to solid mode or object mode where the subsurf shows up, we can actually see that it's very smooth there, not getting any weird artifacts showing up. Probably want to have the legs coming in a bit closer in the middle, so we'll just do that by doing this. Yeah, that looks better. Gonna make so that's the bottom of the tail. Just bring the groin down a bit. Oh, hello Charmander. Never thought I'd see you like this. You could potentially merge these two vertices. I'm not going to, because then you'd look at merging these and you're going to lose this edge loop here, which you would probably rather keep. So if we moved some of these back, maybe you could then look into adding an edge loop there, Why don't we bring this one down? There we go. Wonderful use of edge slide there. That tidied that up actually quite nicely. Top of the leg's a bit iffy because of that weird shoulder joint that we just made. If we just try to smooth it out a bit, it will allow his legs, because he does a thing where he jumps up and his legs, okay, imagine he's upside down, his legs go apart like that. So that's why I want the shoulder joint in there. And it also looks very much like that's what's going on here as well. So we'll just keep editing a little bit at a time. So we've got legs that are ready for feet. We could probably edge slide that back up a little bit, extrude down, scale down. His legs aren't very long. They kind of look long in this image, but it doesn't appear to be a knee. It's really hard to tell what the anatomy of a Charmander is. Yeah, your name does ring a bell. I think you contacted me on Facebook, maybe? And you were having issues with something, and I do recognize your name. Okay. Now, yeah, I want to keep an eye. The length of the legs, I don't want them to be too long. What we will do is we will add in so we want to make the feet. We'll add in a cube, and we'll come down here, open up this, and just move the location X, just so we can get that mirroring correctly. When you move with this little location slider, it doesn't, the clipping on the mirror doesn't take into effect. So you can add in a new object onto a model like this. Scaled it down. We've actually got a really good reference of the foot there. Quite long, rounded, chunky little feet. So we can sort of place them roughly where they're going to go. Move that up in the Z. And that's probably, how do we go width-wise? They're probably a little bit less wide than the legs. So we'll bring them in a little bit. Quite long though. Add in a loop there. Now we can, now that we've got sort of the rough size in there, we'll just select all those vertices with L and hide. And we want to get, so this shape here, so a long, rounded at the top, but more rounded at the back. So we can do that by probably putting a loop cut in there, maybe do 2. And then bring it out on the Y. So more rounded on the back, a little bit rounded at the front. So we're probably gone a little bit too long there. And then for the shape, we probably want the back to be a little bit higher. Bring the toe down a bit. Add in a loop. Scale it out so it's nice and rounded. Probably bring these 4 vertices up. And that's about right. Yeah, that looks about right. I think we'll need a cut here. If we scale that out, then we've got 6 vertices here that we can bridge to the foot. He looks, yeah, that's looking okay. Kind of looks like a pair of slippers right now, but we'll get that. We'll maybe widen the toe in the X. And bring, say, these edges in, just scale them in a little bit. These edges, scale them in a little bit. Trying to make it look a bit less square, even though it is a square. Now he does have a bit of a sticky outy heel. Yeah, no worries, man. Carry on. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. We'll unhide the Charmander. Bring the foot in the Y. Pretty close. We will F3 bridge. Oh. Hold on, let's try that again. Bridge. Actually control E. And then I'm going to, because that's too many polygons, I'm going to erase that edge loop there. And that should look fairly good. Shade smooth. Yeah, that's alright. Little Charmander feet. Bring his heels out a little bit. That's what the reference is like. Probably, wow. Make them in line with the legs, that's helpful. Might sort of edge slide most of these up just a bit, just to smooth out that transition. Now looking at the reference, his feet are a bit thicker than what we've got here. So we'll bring this row and this row of edges down just a little bit. I'll do a control minus to deselect them. There we go. Nice little thick pudgy Charmander feet. I don't feel the need to because it's a very flat bottom because we started off with a cube and I haven't adjusted any of them. But if you need to, you can add in an edge loop that's close to the bottom, make that really sharp. But I don't think that's required. And then we just need to add in some toes. We're nearly there. We're actually done. Making really good time today. Want to spend a little bit more time on the face. Just that bit there was bothering me. So let's add in the toes or the little claws that he's got. So he's got 3. They're spaced apart from the look of that, although they're very close together in these ones. Yeah, it's one of those ones that's tricky to know exactly what the size is. But we'll add in a cylinder. We'll make it, oh, not 63. We'll make it 6 vertices around. Bring the radius and the depth all the way down. And then, again, bring it out in the X. Oh no, we don't need to. We've just added a separate object. Okay. Cylinder. Oh, I just undid it. Out of existence. Hold on. Add in a cylinder. Those settings are still there. We will just move it down there. Go to edit mode. Rotate, hold to control to get that 90 degrees. And so the claws are just little cylinders that taper down. There's a little bit of a curve in them. So we can really achieve that with just one loop cut here. So we'll scale that all the way down. We'll scale these two down a bit anyway because we want it to be thin. Bring that up in the X a little bit. Bring that down in the Z a little bit. Then that's a little curved claw. Probably way too long. His claws are more, from what I can see, they're quite stubby rather than long and pointy. There is a point to them, but there's not. It's not a super long talon. We'll keep that length for now, and we'll Shift J. Shift select the Charmander and then Control J to join the two together. We get some nice rounded claws, and I'm just going to intersect them with the foot. Make sure the tip's pretty much on where the ground would be. Something like that. You can see that's still too long. So we'll just bring it back in the Y. The length is still a little bit too long. Then we might just scale up this end bit. It's not super aggressive, pointy. Beautiful. Object mode, shade smooth. And then we will L to select that object that's all linked together. Shift D to duplicate. Rotate, move. I'll select the original again. I prefer to copy from the original and move it over like this. So we've got a little bit of a gap between them. That left one needs to be rotated in the Z a bit more and brought back in the Y a bit more. I think. Yeah, that's more even. And then lastly, oh, what's happened here? We've accidentally moved some vertices. Now we've clipped them, so I'll undo clipping and bring them back out. And that will just fix that. Those are the two I tried to fix earlier. I think that looks okay. Yeah, that's a Charmander. Legs, they're still looking too long, honestly. So let's shorten these puppies. Is that connected to the body? It is a bit, so we'll come down one. We'll just bring these edge loops a bit closer together. See how that looks. That's much better. Still in side view they're looking long, funnily enough. Front view is okay. Front view we can probably bring these in a bit. I think they're looking like they need to come out to here, sort of thing. Just trying to get the shape to look pleasing at this point. Consistent with itself. Yeah, that's a bit better. So we want to bring these out a bit. Maybe bring this one in a bit. Yeah, little Charmander. I think that will be enough. We can keep, obviously, spending a lot of time on the modelling, pushing and pulling vertices, trying to get things looking a bit closer. Maybe these claws are all a little bit too long still, so I'll select those. Maybe I'll make sure everything's deselected before I do anything. Move them back in the Y. We've got little Charmander claws. And we'll bring down top of the feet, and the toes. There we go, that's better. Maybe his tummy should be a bit fatter as well. Bring that down and forwards a bit. Yeah. Move that out of the way. So I'm happy at this point to leave it here. What I will do before we leave is, because we've only been going for a bit over an hour, we'll get the texturing done. Because we've got the time to, and I like to get that done if I can. So we save, make sure you save regularly. Now we'll do the UVs, what do we call them, the seams, we'll do them now before we apply the mirror. It's handy to have that option if you can. You can't always have that, but if you can, it's nice. I'll select. So basically, I've selected the whole center line, and then deselected the face, and mark as a seam. And a red edge means that it's a seam. We'll select a few vertices down here, mark as a seam. We want to select this inside row of edges, mark that as a seam. So on the eye, there's a row of edges that surround the eye. There's a row of edges along the outside as well here that are very close to each other. That is the top of the eye, But when we extrude it in, we want to select these edges as the seam. Otherwise the texture will spill out and it will look ugly. We'll probably select this part where the arm comes out of, mark that as a seam. Mark the base of the tail, not as an edge loop, but as a seam. So just doing Control E to mark seams. Around the foot, mark seam. I do find it helpful to mark the middle of the foot as well, and then you just get a top and a bottom. For this kind of character, it's perfectly fine. We can paint on the different colour that goes on the bottom of the foot. The legs, being cylinders, will need to be need to have an edge that is, maybe we do here. Yeah, that looks better. Control E, mark seam, and then we'll choose one of the edges along the back and mark the seam there. Always try and have seams in places where you're not necessarily going to see that part of the model. So the back of the leg, you're not going to see that often. Same with the back of the arm. We'll just choose one of these and mark seam. I'll also do around this loop around the hands, mark that as a seam. The hand will just leave as it is. Obviously on a more complicated character you wouldn't do that. I think that's everything that we would want to mark. Do an A, select all, and then unwrap now. I'll increase the margin to 0.04. And that should be good. So now we can actually go vertical split on here and go to UV editor. And we'll see there's a little bit of funkiness going on. So we'll find out what all that is. From what I can see, we've got this guy. I think these are the toes, because those look like default UVs that haven't been adjusted. Yes, that's what that is. So that's the toes, or the claws. They're all going to be one uniform colour, so not worried about having perfect unwraps for them. But that's just the N-gon at each end, and then the vertices that match that. That are around the side, and this is both of the toes, so that's overlapping because we've got the mirror on, and we should actually apply the mirror now. And then we'll see that when we select this island and move it, you see there's another island that's exactly the same underneath, because we've got this. We'll select everything like that. So select everything in edit mode with A. And then we'll turn off the UV sync selection for now. We will turn that back on soon. I believe this is the bottom of the foot, so we will be painting that. Now it can be tricky, but it's easiest to shift select the vertices like this to make sure you get both pieces. I'll just move that foot to the side. Select these. Move that over here, and here we've got the hand. You can tell just by the weird shape of it all. Move that over here, and then what I'm pretty sure this is the eye. Now we'll select all of that. We'll double check by clicking on the sync selection, and then select all of these vertices that we're not sure about. And if you look at the eyes, you can see that it's now selected. So this is definitely the eyes. It will also select these vertices here as part of the eye socket, so that makes things difficult to move around. So that's why we turn off sync selection, make sure it's all selected in edit mode, and then we can edit what we're actually want to edit and move things around. So this is the eye. I'm going to rotate it so that it's pointing up. It's wider at the bottom and thinner at the top. And I'm going to scale it up. And I want to give that, because of all the parts of the body of the Charmander, that's probably the part that has the most detail that we need. So scale it up in this in the UV editor, just so we've got a bit more resolution to the texture that goes on the eye. It's not going to make a huge difference, honestly, but it would do if, say, you had very low resolution textures and you were working on a model, maybe that was like a low poly stylized with very 8-bit sort of graphics. You might have a part that you want to be more detailed than others, so you do that by giving it more UV space. Now we want to select. Okay, now there is a way. Is that? Okay, so that's selecting everything there. Oh, that's the whole tail. Like, completely unwrapped. It's not. It should be split in half. Yeah, that should be half of the tail. Where's the other half? That's up there. What's here? Something very unusual is happening there. Not 100% sure what, because it's all seamed. Anyway, it's going to be a flat colour, so let's just move that here. Yeah, because we've got two eye islands. I don't know why I'm not getting two tail islands. So this is part that I'm not sure. Oh, that'd be the leg, I think, because they're short little legs. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. This is the chest. Now, probably the thinner section here will be the tail, and the wider section here will be the neck. And we've got some weird stuff going on here. That is the flattened sort of, what did I call it? The shoulder joint. So I might rotate that like this. That doesn't actually change how much space it takes up by too much. Scale it down just a little bit. I just want to make sure everything's not too close to each other. So right now, oops. Come on. I have to select all of these vertices, like shift select them, and then B middle right click or middle click and drag to deselect. Just get that eye a little bit away from everything else, just so that it's easier to work on. We're not going to be doing anything with the legs, top of the feet. We'll be doing the bottom of the feet, the eye, the chest, and then a little bit on the snout. Now this is the head, and it looks very weird, but that's fine. It's really hard to tell what part of the head it is. Obviously this is the top of the head and that's where the eye goes. Oh, this is the mouth. So the mouth is opened up because there's no interior to it. That's what's going on. Cool. So now we want to texture paint. We'll go to the image editor, create a new image. I'm going to do 2048. 2048. And we'll call it char diff. It's a diffuse for the Charmander. We'll hit OK. And then we'll go back to UV editor. We'll make sure sync selection is on. So when we go to the image editor and select char diff, and then go to paint mode, and then on here we go from object mode to texture paint, the UVs show up. So that's really handy. It does show up in subdivided, so if I turn that off, it doesn't seem to make a difference. Maybe if I kill it? No, it's still showing subdivided. Oh no, there we go. I moved it around to refresh. Okay, so we'll add that back in. Subdivision surface. Maybe if I turn off... I don't want to see it. So let's just leave them on. Yeah, that's cool. So we want, obviously, Charmander, we don't want him to be purple. So we'll choose material here. Oh, just, you know, one of those things that I feel. We'll make a new material. So plus here, new, and then we'll call it Charmander. And base color, just click on the little yellow dot, which is image texture, and then choose char diff. And then if we go to textured view, rendered, textured, one of them, that should be, hold on, what if we select all, and hit assign. There we go, okay. We've added like a sub material, but that's fine. It still works exactly the same way. Okay, so now let's paint. We want some colors. Now it helps to have a color palette, as I have found. To get close to the colors, what I have been doing is I've got a, we'll do file, so I've got the import images as planes, so we'll do images in the add-on search. So I've got import images as planes enabled. So if I go file and then import images as planes, I've got a picture of Charmander I pulled off the internet. And now that is in the scene. We don't need this empty anymore, so we'll hide that. GY, I guess, we'll just put it behind. And that gives us an idea of the colours that we want. Don't need to worry about the pink for the mouth because we're not doing that. But this colour will go on the bottom of the feet. And oh, I actually missed that it goes up the tail. There we go. That's something I didn't do last time. Let's get this perfect. Okay, so to get the colours that we want, because we're in texture paint, no we're not, because we're in texture paint mode on this side, and if we hit N and bring up the tool, we've got the colour wheel here. We can actually pick the colour off of this, and then over here, just bring it up to white, and that will increase the saturation basically. And we will, on the colour palette, click new, and then hit that plus, and so that whatever's in this left slot will become the next colour on the palette. We also want that tummy colour. Again, I'm just going to bring it up to white. I think some of the shading in the viewport is changing the colours that get picked a little bit. Then we want pick the green. Again, bring that. I might actually keep that a little bit darker, but not as dark as it was. We've got a green. We need black and we need white, and we'll also make an off-white colour as well. So we'll rotate that. We've got black. Put that all the way up. We've got white, and then we'll make a slightly pink or a slightly yellowish white, and add that as well. And that we will probably use for the toes. So we could either paint on the model or we can paint on the texture here. It depends on what I'm doing. We'll decide whether or not I do it on the model or not. It's nice to have the model showing anyway whilst you're painting over here. So we can have a setup sort of like this. We've got the orange selected. We've just got a normal brush. For the stroke and the fall off, we will change that to constant, and that just means that there's no smoothing around the text, around the color that we're painting. Sometimes you might want that I definitely don't. I'll make a huge brush. Oh no, I won't. I will. Where are the tools? T. There we go. T for tools. Fill with the paint bucket, and we'll fill everything with the active color, which is not orange. There we go. So now we've got that orange, and it doesn't, like, even though, yeah, we lightened it, it doesn't quite match, so maybe we do need to darken it. But then it loses saturation. It doesn't look quite where it should. So we'll just adjust. It looks very dull to me now, so I will. It looks like it needs a little bit more red. That looks pretty close. I'm looking at the difference between these two here. That looks pretty close. We can adjust that at a later point, because that's just going to be the main color over everything. We'll do the claws first. We've got that little off-white color that we made at the end. We'll choose the brush, and we'll just, nope, off-white. We'll just color those in, and just not even think too much about that. Now the eyes we'll do next. So the eyes are this big part here. Now we'll actually zoom in very nice and close here. We'll paint it all black, I think, to start with. Just make sure if the black is leaking over onto the head, then you need to look at where you made your seams that we did earlier. Obviously, I've done some testing and I know where the seam should be. So if your model is even slightly different, it might need the seam to be in a slightly different spot. But that's what works for here. And then we've got a little green bottom of the eye. That's sort of hinting that it's the iris. And then we've got a big white blob in the top corner as well. So we'll get those in. So we'll pick the green. And it's nice to have a stabilized stroke on as well. And we'll start near the bottom of the eye, and we'll just do a big swoopy swoop. And that'll get us this part. It should probably be a bit thicker, so we'll do another swoopy swoop. And then in the drawing, everything's got an outline, and it does look better with that outline included. So we go back to black, and we'll make our brush a bit smaller, and then just sort of follow along the outline of everything with the stabilized brush. And we missed sort of a bit there, so we get that. Still looking. Yeah, there we go. So it's mirrored at the moment. So when I move when I colour in here, it's actually affecting over here. So that's just something to be wary of. It's looking too thick or too high up, so I'm just going to bring that down a bit. It's definitely higher in the back than it is in the front. So this side is the front, so we'll do something like this. I'll turn off stabilized stroke. I'm just using my mouse for this. I'm going to take the tops off of these pointy cornery bits because those look sharp and dangerous. And that's the bottom part of the eye. You can spend more time getting the shape perfect if you like, but it's just sort of supposed to hint at something being there. And then in the front of the eye, so on this side, we've got a fairly blobby sort of thing going on. About there, a little bit lower. Oh no, it's at the top. More like this. But it's also straight. So lots of undos. Maybe make that brush a little bit bigger and then bring it in. That's almost it. About there. Just bring that up a little bit more. There we go. That's good enough for me for now. We want to add, obviously, the little nostrils that he's got. Now, they're little lines in most of the references. There's also a couple of references with the little dots. It's really hard to find the placement for these, so we'll just sort of wing it. I ended up using black. I tried it with a different colour. It wasn't working. But I will actually draw on the model itself. Because the UVs are overlapping, it will mirror. And it's really hard to just sort of decide where they go. A little line about there. Nope, that looks off. Maybe a bit closer and smaller. Ooh. So when you're in texture paint mode, if you zoom in, you actually do smaller strokes. That looks about right. We can take a look on the texture map over here where it has painted on. We can just clean that up a little bit. Make the brush size about the same. Just do that to clean it up. There's not a little wiggly stripe. Nice. So then we've got the belly. So we'll get that done. So we want this colour here. And a much bigger brush. I think it's this part. Yeah, there we go. So it starts just under the chin. So if we come up to here, straight down, and it does actually continue up the tail. So we'll do that this time. We'll just keep an eye on what it's doing. If we can swap there and then put the orange there. And that's not the right colour anymore, so let's pick the one that we're actually using, add it to the palette, remove the wrong one, there we go. Okay, to make this bit at the end a bit thinner, I feel like it should taper off up the tail. Hi there Ziegler, hello from Australia. I hope Poland is doing okay. It's probably quite cold there this time of year. Nice and warm here. Got the aircon going. This is Charmander. I hope you like Pokemon, because that's what I've been doing a lot of lately. That actually has worked out pretty well. Probably want to widen this a little bit more, because it comes up pretty close to the arms. Oh, that's the wrong colour. Swap that back. Something like that. And just getting those little, trying to get it nice and smooth along the line here. That's looking okay. It's a little bit wibbly. Where is that? Is that here? No, that's further down. Okay. It's here that it's wibbly, yeah. This bit here. Okay, so that's it's wibbly not because of this is a fairly straight line. It's a little bit wibbly, but this is more wibbly than what's going on here. So that tells me that it's going to be easier to do it on the model. We will stabilize the stroke. And we'll just calm down like this. Just tidy that up. So now in the texture, we've taken out this chunk here, but on the model, it looks fine. And that's sort of the difference between an unwrapped model and a model that's ready to go. Probably add a little bit of this cream back over here. There we go, that's nice. We've got a little bit of green between the legs here, so let's fix that. Just paint that out. Turn off stabilize. We don't need that for this bit. There we go. That's looking good. It's looking a lot like Charmander now. And then we just want this cream colour to continue up the tail. So we'll see. Let's have a look. What happens if I paint here? Painting on the outside. Okay, so if I paint along here, that's done exactly what I wanted it to do. So we go like this. It probably goes almost up to the tip, like that. And then we can even this out in the viewport. Probably, oh, we can even do it here a little bit as well. Just tidy that up. Oh, with a steady hand. What's going on? We got a little bit extra along there. Bring that back to there. Oh. And that's gotten very wobbly. But we want to. Oh. Just bring that in a little bit, and that's very consistent now. So we can stabilize the stroke and. Ah, very good. I am a British citizen from birth, but now I live in Australia, so I am one of those wonderful weirdos that is multicultural.
Imagine being an Australian citizen.
Yuck. I might do this with the orange on the inside as well, just with the stabilized stroke. I'm just trying to get a nice smooth line. That's better. We need to add a little bit at the bottom here. That's fine. And do that with a smaller brush. Just add until it just connects with the other part of the texture. There we go. Just make that a bit softer. Yeah, that will do. Tip of the tail is going a bit weird because of all of this. So let's... Australia is a very nice country to live in, I'll be honest. Some very fun people to hang out with. I'm just going to bring, because this is, you can see it bulging out here, so I'm just going to bring this down to the, pretty much to where that edge is. And that's, yeah, that's straightening that out by quite a lot. Now that bit's a bit too much. Just take that off there. Take that down a little bit. And that's a fairly uniform looking thing that goes under the tail. Now there is a tricky part which I did like about my previous model, so we will try and include that. We'll darken this colour, not the orange. We'll darken the sort of the cream colour a little bit that we're using, and we'll turn on stabilize stroke with a sort of a little brush like this sort of size, and then we're just going to try and follow this contour as much as we can. Bear in mind that I'm using a mouse and not a tablet. I do have a tablet here, but I don't want to mess around with doing various different input methods over one stream. I'll just try and follow all of this. See how that went. Look, I've had better. Let's have another go. Maybe we'll do it in sections. We'll get to there. That's nice and smooth. I'm happy with that. We'll actually come back in the other direction. That missed. Missed. Oh, that was close. Okay, so that has connected, but left us with a bit of a gap there. Thank you, Cryptic Spore. Appreciate. So we'll bring back that colour and just turn off, stabilize, and we'll just fill this in just carefully. Could probably even use bucket fill right there. That is not the colour I'm trying to bucket fill with. This colour. There we go. Okay, so it's done most of the work, but we just need to tidy it up. We'll do a really small brush. Just clean up those pixels. It would be hardly noticeable, and this is all underneath, like between his legs, so it's not a spot that you would ever particularly highlight. But I would know that there is some issues there, and that would bother me. There's just little bits of orange. Just touch the pixels with the edge of the brush to get the orange to go away. There we go. A bit more there. Oop. Okay. Beautiful. So we just want to continue this line, although it's looking quite thick for the tail. So we'll do a thinner one, and then we'll sort of draw them to merge together. So we'll need to pick that color again. So we use the color picker, and I can't change the pan the screen like that. So we'll just pick that so it's the same color, and we'll pick a smaller brush, probably like that. Turn on the stabilize stroke, and just we'll just try and follow the edge of this. Yeah, that's much too thick. So that's just taken over the whole end of the tail. I'm not sure you can really taper the stabilize, as far as I know. And I don't have pressure sensitivity to try and taper as well. So in that case, we'll just do a smaller brush. What are we at now? We're at 6. Come down to like 3. Yeah, that's a bit closer. So we want to, why don't we come out from here and then try and, wow, that is not the way to do it. Oh, that was close. Let's do it without stabilize, eh? Because that's just being tricky. So I'll just try and have a fairly stable hand. And we're just trying to touch the sort of the middle of the brush stroke along where the edge of this is. We're going to need to tidy this up in a moment. And that needs, I'm going to need adjustment here, so we'll do some sort of painting. If we paint all this in. And just sort of taper it off fairly gently, like that. So that looks like it's all connected and part of the same thing. It's a little bit how you going, but we'll live with that for now. And this is why art takes a long time, because your first stroke is not always the good one. For example, I just made that worse. That will do. Let's look here. So we want the inside here to be a little bit darker, like that. Oh, that's so close. Let's go there. Tiny bit more there. So that's where it needs to come out to. Then we just paint that up there. Paint that up there. And so now this line here where it changes is actually almost indistinguishable. Now this is sticking out a little bit on this end here, so we'll bring that in a little bit more. Nope. Nope, that was perfect the first try. Okay, so we'll bring this back like that, and then when it updates you can see that it's now nice and smooth, other than the general wobbliness of the line that I have incorporated by my own fantabulous capabilities and brushstrokeness. I'll just even out where it's quite obvious that it's not very even. Tidy that up a bit. There we go. So that will do for the tail. It's just basically we're getting that outline in around the tummy. Cool. So that's Charmander. The last thing to do is the little bit of fire on his tail, which is fun, and we will do that now. So we will join these areas by going like that, and then we will go to object mode. We'll hide that Charmander. We're going to add in a UV sphere. Maybe turn up the divisions a little bit to make the fire a bit more interesting. Bring this over in object mode, scale it down to roughly the right sort of size. Maybe a bit smaller than that. Scale in the Z a bit to get the right sort of, yeah, that's about right. That's about the size of a Charmander flame. In edit mode, we select nothing by left clicking in empty space, and then we will go to select and select random. It will randomly select over here the percentage, so it's just 50%. I'm going to scale a little bit, and then deselect, select, select random, scale that in, deselect everything. I think you can do Control R, Shift R, Alt R, no. There is a repeat function, I can't remember what it is. Select random again, scale this one out, deselect, select random, scale this one in, and now we've got a very, where'd that go? Hello? Oh, it's moved over there. It was never in the center. Alt G, and then inside view, we'll just move it into place. Now, obviously this is looking not very much like fire, even if I shade smooth, that's fine. We will select a vertex near the bottom, turn on proportional editing so we can do stuff. I'm going to scale down at the bottom, and that will make it merge with the fire a bit better. I'm going to select a ring sort of in the middle, scale up, turn proportional editing down a bit, maybe bring that to GZ. Wow, what is going on? GZ, okay. Works in the perspective viewport, that's fine. Okay, so now we've got a fiery looking thing. We can shade smooth, we can even do a control 1 or control 2 to make it look all smooth. The point is not to make a perfect flame. This isn't a fire tutorial. You could make this in various different ways. This is just a quick and easy way to get something that looks alright. We'll do a new material. We need a new image texture, so that's vertical split again. Go to image editor, new, we'll call it fire tail. Doesn't need many pixels, so we'll just do half of what we did before, just so that there's enough for it not to look terrible. Add the image texture to the base of fire tail, there we go. And we can now paint, we'll go to texture paint, bring up the panel. We'll start with yellowy orange at the bottom. Do a big, and we'll actually just blood fill. That is not the color I picked. Blood fill the shape here. Make it a little bit yellower like that. Maybe even a little bit more yellow like that. Okay, that's good. We'll go to orange. Then we'll get the brush and we'll make it a bit smaller than we need and just start painting. And nothing is happening. I don't know why. Is it because this is not in paint mode? Or it is painting. It's just the colours are too similar. I see. Let's go very orange. Ah, there we go. You can see that. Beautiful. Ooh. Didn't like that undo. And we'll just paint around. Because it's a separate object, we don't need to worry about painting on Charmander and ruining his eye or anything like that. I'm clicking and painting now. You can always join the two later on, I guess. Or no, you wouldn't because they've got different textures. Do something like this, and then lastly we'll get a red. Paint the top. This is very similar to how I did it the first time, and honestly I can't think of a quicker and easier way to make something that kind of looks like fire whilst it's moving from the distance with your eyes slightly closed. And then we'll look at the top and colour that in a bit red as well. Just try and get in those gaps mostly, but little bits, obviously little bits of yellow sticking out is not a big issue. And then that looks kind of like fire, it's alright. And then when we go to object mode, where Charmander is nice and bright and the tail is nice and bright, we got a Charmander in 2 hours. How's that? Fully textured, fantabulous, even with the fire tail. What more could you ask for, eh? That's look at this texture though. Woo, that's fun. That's where Charmander basically is, honestly. This model, because of streaming, I ended up spending less time on this one than I did the first one, and I actually think, let's have a look. So that's this one, and then this is the other one that I did. Which one do I prefer? Oh, geez, I do prefer the second one. It's always better the second time. There we go. Shape of the head is much more Charmander. This one, the snout's too long, and the head's a bit shorter. The arms could probably do to be a bit thicker, though. Oh, because his thicker arms in this look good. The legs shape is a bit wacko there. It's a bit more consistent with the body here, like that. Tailfire looks worse. More spiky is better, for sure. Tail shape is very similar. Although this one comes out a bit further, whereas this one's a bit shorter. Yeah. Let's see what happens if we make the arms a bit chunkier. Alt S. Alt S with proportional modelling. Ooh. No, that's not. Ooh. Very inconsistent. There we go. Yeah. Chunkier arms are better. There we go. Yeah, I thought, because I was so happy with my first Charmander model, that the second one couldn't match it. But it is still better. Practice does make perfect. There you go, kids. That's what we've learned today. If you're going to make a model, make it once, and then the second one will be better. What else can I say? I don't know. We're on time. We're doing good. We've done the whole model. We've done what we were doing. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add, really, other than tune in next week. Hit subscribe on the YouTubes. Like the video. Chuck comments. What else does YouTube people do? I don't know. Something about a bell. People like bells on YouTube.
Hit the bell so that you get notified every time I'm live.
Something like that. The videos, the streams do get turned into VODs on YouTube, and that's currently sort of my what is being uploaded. I do have ideas for more videos, and I will, at some point, if it's not too much extra work than I am expecting it to be, I would like to be doing a stream of 3D modeling, and maybe just keep it Pokemon, but also do some tutorials that are videos throughout the week. They're a different workload to what a gameplay video is, which is what I was doing for Minecraft, and that was the editing for that was doing my head in. So I've switched to streaming for that. But I might, if I can, I think I need to spend more time with Blender consistently every day making things. It doesn't have to be for any purpose, just making something, so that I am more comfortable and quicker at working. And at that point, I will be able to probably make a video and a stream each week. And I think that could happen in the near future. I would like for that to happen. I'd like to grow my channel more. I think currently at about 6,000 subscribers, which I'm very happy with. I feel like because I did a lot of videos some time ago, and then I've sprinkled in the occasional video here and there, it's not grown as much as it could have if I had been more consistent, which is perfectly natural, especially with the way YouTube is. But I would definitely like to grow the channel and have more interactivity, especially on the streams, because it's really nice when people do come in and say hello and chat and that sort of thing. It's nice. That's part of why I'm streaming, to sort of get to know the community of people that are watching my videos. That's something I would like to work towards having more of. I think if I can be consistent and add in a regular upload, I could probably get to about 10,000 this year, I reckon, by December 31st. I reckon that's a goal. So if you're watching this, you know that's what I'm aiming for. So help me out and get all your friends and your family and everyone you know to subscribe, because it's good shit. But yeah, I want to do some beginner tutorials, like super beginner. So if you're watching this and thinking this is too complicated, I have ideas for videos that for models that you can make that don't require any use of moving vertices around, because that's complicated. So we can, yeah, I've got those sort of ideas. It's in the pipeline, as they say. So yeah, for now, we'll be doing Pokemon once a week, every week. Let me know in the comments if you want a specific Pokemon to be made in the next stream, because it's entirely possible that I will do it, because I'm fickle like that. Good on you for tuning in. I will see you next week if you're still here. If